What's up, guys? Igor Hernandez here. Let's talk trial. Today I want to talk about opening statements. Particularly, I want to give you a couple of opening statements that I think are fantastic. And I want you to basically watch them and have an idea as to how a proper opening statement is done. I'm going to put up two opening statements. The first one in this part of the episode, or part one, because this will be a two-part video, is going to be an opening statement that was done here in Florida by a prosecutor whose name is John Guy, and he's in North Florida somewhere. I've never met the guy, never seen the guy, but I learned about him when he was trying another case, which was a media case down here, which was a Trayvon Martin case, and he did the rebuttal closing argument, and I thought it was the most solid presentation of that entire trial. So I kind of follow what he does, and I kind of watch what he does. And he was trying another case in North Florida a few years ago, and the opening statement was actually recorded because it was another media case. Now, mind you, most of the times when I hear about this as a media case and all these lawyers are good and whatever, I watch the actual performance and I am disappointed. I gotta be straight up with you. I watch the performance and I say, this ain't so great. This is not among the best opening statements or closing arguments I've ever seen, that kind of thing. But for this guy, this John Guy, I gotta say, he has not disappointed me yet. So I'm gonna put up this opening statement that he did in this case, and I want you to watch it because I think this is one of the best opening statement examples that you can watch on YouTube. He basically hits all the things. He's telling a story. He's telling it in a pretty persuasive way. He's using word pictures. He's using tone and pace, and he's getting the full range of his voice. It's hands down, one of the best opening statements you could get your hands on YouTube. So I'm gonna put it up for you right here so you can watch it. And that's it for now, guys. I'll catch you again next time, which, as you know, it's every Wednesday. If you like the video, hit like down there, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. That way when the new videos come out, you can catch them.
And welcome to everyone that's here. We are here to commence the trial of the state of Florida versus Michael David Dunn. Is the state ready to proceed?
Yes, sir.
Defense ready to proceed?
So ready, Your Honor.
Mr. Guy?
Thank you, Your Honor. May it please the court?
Yes, sir.
Counsel, good afternoon. As they had been so many times before, the two best friends were side by side. Jordan Davis and Leland Brunson, sitting in the back seat of a friend's SUV in the middle of a holiday weekend of mall hopping and girl shopping. But this moment was unlike any other the two best friends had ever spent. Bullets, 9 of them, had come crashing through the glass and metal surrounding them. Some of the bullets had whizzed by their heads and the heads of 2 other teenagers who were in the car. Some of the bullets had been stopped by the metal in the doors. But some of the bullets were unaccounted for. And so 4 terrified teenagers began an ominous roll call. Tommy, Tevin, Leland, Jordan. Everybody responded to the sound of their name, except Jordan Davis. He was lying in the back seat with his head in Leland Brunson's lap. Unbeknownst to any of them, 3 of those bullets had found their target. One of them had entered his right leg. One of them had entered his left leg. And one of them had entered his right side, tore through his liver, passed through both of his lungs, and shredded his aorta. And then the blood that for 17 years had run so naturally through Jordan Davis's veins and arteries was pouring out of them. And so the two best friends were side by side for the last time. Jordan Davis, gasping for air, was taking his last breaths of life. And Leland Brunson, who was cradling his dying friend, was taking his last breaths of innocence. And at that exact moment, the man who, fueled by anger and intent, had fired 10 times, 10, into a car of unarmed teenagers, was driving away, as though nothing had happened. Michael David Dunn pointed a semi-automatic pistol at 4 unarmed kids from a distance much closer than you and I, and then drove off. He didn't call the police. He went to his hotel with his girlfriend, and he called a pizza delivery man and ordered a pizza. He took his little dog for a walk outside the hotel, turned on a movie, and made himself a big, tall rum and coke. And not long after, an emergency doctor at Shands Hospital pronounced Jordan Davis dead. That defendant put his head on his hotel pillow and went to sleep. But ladies and gentlemen, as you are about to learn, there are some things that defendant will never, ever be able to run from. The physical evidence, the bullet trajectory through the car and through Jordan Davis's body, that will prove to you beyond any doubt that when that defendant opened fire, Jordan Davis was sitting in his car seat with the door closed, with nothing in his hands. And he was leaning over, away from the gunfire, toward Leland Brunson. Secondly, the words from that defendant's own mouth at the time of the shooting, words of hate, words of intent, words that he can't now take back. And most importantly, the memories. The wretched, indelible memories of the 3 boys who survived. And a host of witnesses at a gas station, including his own girlfriend, who he made witnesses to a homicide. The date was November 23rd, 2012, the day after Thanksgiving. Everybody knows it now as Black Friday. And 17-year-old Jordan Davis got together with his best friend, 17-year-old Leland Brunson, both of them students at Wilson High School. And as teenage boys are wont to do, they called 2 other friends to go to the mall to look for girls. So they called 17-year-old Tevin Thompson, a student at Atlantic Coast High, and 19-year-old Tommy Storms. And the 4 teenagers jumped into Tommy Storms' red Dodge Durango and went to the town center and struck out. The only person of note they ran into was Jordan Davis's on-again, off-again girlfriend, Aaliyah Harris. And then they climbed back into the car and headed for another mall, the Avenues Mall. But they stopped. They stopped at a Gate gas station at the intersection of Southside Boulevard and Bay Meadows Road. And Tommy Storms pulled in to a parking space right in front of the door, facing the store. Tommy Storms got out to go inside to get some cigarettes for himself and some gum for the other boys. And Tevin Thompson, and Leland Brunson, and Jordan Davis sat in the car listening to music. Their music. Loud music. Rap music. And then into their lives, and into the parking space right beside them, pulled the defendant. And after his girlfriend got into the store he turned his attention to the boys. But before his girlfriend got out of the car, he turned to her and said, "I hate that thug music that was rattling his rearview mirror." And his girlfriend just looked at him and said, "I know," and went in the store. And rather than go into the store himself or move his car, the defendant chose to roll down his window. He was right next to Tevin Thompson. Tevin Thompson was in the front passenger seat. The defendant was in the driver's seat of his car. And he looked at him and said, "Hey, can you turn that down? I can't hear myself think." So Tevin Thompson turned the music down. But Jordan Davis, who was sitting behind Tevin Thompson in the rear passenger seat, didn't want to be told what to listen to, or at what volume to listen to it at. So he said, "F him, turn it up." And he didn't say F, he said the word. And he didn't say him, he said the N-word. But he said, "Turn it up." So Tevin Thompson turned the music back up. And then Jordan Davis and the defendant started jawing at each other. Jordan Davis is 5 feet 11 inches tall, 145 pounds. The defendant is 6'4" and well over 200. But they exchanged F-bombs back and forth. And at about the time Tommy Storms got back in the car, the defendant rolled down his window again and said, "Are you talking to me?" And Jordan Davis looked at him and said, "Yeah, I'm talking to you." And then the defendant said, "You're not going to talk to me like that." And in the same motion, he reached in his glove box and grabbed his pistol. And he pulled the slide back to chamber a live round. And with two hands, he pointed out his window back at Jordan Davis's door and pulled the trigger 3 times. Every one of those shots in a nice, tight little circle went through the door and into Jordan Davis's body. Tommy Storms, the driver, as you can imagine, was terrified and put the car in reverse and backed up. The defendant didn't stop. He kept focused and aimed on the car, and he pulled the trigger 4 more times. And you'll see the bullet holes in Tevin Thompson's door, one after the other. 3. The 4th shot missed. And then Tommy Storms backed all the way up and pulled off as fast as he could into an adjacent parking lot. But the defendant didn't stop. Instead, he opened his driver's door and put his legs out and took aim again and pulled the trigger 3 more times. Every one of those shots hit the car. 2 of them in the back where the taillight is, 1 of them in a rear window that crisscrossed the car, passing between all 4 of their heads. It came in the back right window and ended up in that little sun visor above Tommy Storms' head. Tommy Storms got out of the parking lot and stopped the car to see what was wrong, to see who and what had been hit. And they started that roll call that Jordan Davis couldn't respond to. And Tevin Thompson and Tommy Storms got out, and they opened the back doors. And they saw Jordan Davis. And they saw Leland Brunson. And they realized what had happened. And they jumped back in the car. And they didn't park or turn it around. Tommy Storms put it in reverse, straight back to the Gate gas station, where there was lighting and people and help. And people did come. The defendant had already pulled off with his girlfriend. And the 4 teenagers were back in the Gate parking lot. And people did come and pull Jordan Davis out of the car and put him on the ground and tried in vain to perform CPR. And rescue came and put him in the back of an ambulance, where he was taken to the hospital and pronounced dead. Ladies and gentlemen, this case, the evidence in this case, is going to take you back to November 23rd, 2012, at about 7:38 p.m. when those gunshots rang out. And you will be witnesses then. And you'll hear from each of the three boys who lived in the car. Leland Brunson, a wisp of a kid, maybe 150 pounds, maybe. And Tevin Thompson, big guy, round face, smiles a lot. And they'll tell you about the interaction between Jordan Davis and the defendant. That Jordan Davis was upset, no doubt. He was cussing, no doubt. He raised his voice. But he never threatened the defendant. He disrespected the defendant. And Tommy Storms, the driver, who came back to the car and saw the defendant pull his gun. And you'll learn that Jordan Davis, the only thing he had on his person was a cell phone and a pocket knife. And both of those things were in his pockets when he was shot and killed. And when they cut his clothes off him, his little pocket knife and his cell phone were in his pocket. But you won't just have the people in the car. This happened at a gas station before 8 p.m. on Black Friday on the South Side. You'll hear from people like Stephen Smith, a contractor who stopped there to get something to drink, and who walked out the front door of the store. The defendant's car was the first spot next to the door, and he was stopped by what he heard the defendant say, "You're not going to talk to me like that." And he looked, maybe 10 feet to his right, and saw the defendant pull that gun and aim it out the door at point blank range at the car next to him, and pull the trigger. And saw the red Dodge Durango back up and the defendant keep firing. And saw the Dodge Durango pull off and the defendant keep firing. You'll hear from people like Andrew Williams, who was on the street, and when he heard the shots, he pulled into the gas station. And he pulled Jordan Davis out of the car because he had a medical background. And he put his hands into Jordan Davis's chest in vain. You'll hear from people like Sean Atkins, who had the wherewithal to remember the tag number of the defendant's car before it pulled off. That was given to the police. People like Samantha Ickes, who pulled in just before the boys pulled back in and saw the holes in the car and saw the panic on their faces and called 911. You'll hear from people like Christopher and Alyssa LeBlanc, a brother and sister, who had had dinner at the Loop restaurant, which is in the next plaza. They were walking back to their car when they heard the gunshots, and they saw the red Dodge Durango coming towards them and stopped suddenly. And they saw two black males, Tommy Storms and Tevin Thompson, get out of the car and look in the back. They didn't know what they were looking at, that it was Jordan Davis. They just saw him get out of the car. They didn't see him leave the car, the area of the car. They didn't put anything in the car. They didn't take anything out of the car. They just looked in the back. And then they got back in and put it in reverse. And the LeBlancs got in their car and they called 911. But you won't just have witness testimony. You will have forensic evidence. A bone-chilling audio tape. Because the Gates store has surveillance, video surveillance, on the inside of the store only. And so you'll see Tommy Stoner's tall guy, real skinny, got dreadlocks, maybe down to his shoulders, go in and buy a pack of cigarettes and some gum. And you'll see the defendant's girlfriend, Rhonda Rauer, put a bottle of wine on the counter and a bag of potato chips. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, 3 remarkably loud bangs. The shots that killed Jordan Davis. And then a pause. 4 more shots. And then the long pause, where the boys pulled off and he opened his door. 3 more shots, all of which hit the car. And you'll have the car itself. The red Dodge Durango was at the scene, of course, and it was secured. And you'll see through the photographs that when the bullets went through Jordan Davis's closed door, it blew pieces of the inside of the door into the car, big pieces of plastic and rubber, into the car, because the door was closed. And they searched the car. There was a basketball in the back. There were basketball shoes. There were clothes. There were the big 12-inch speakers. There were cups on the floor. There were no weapons. No guns. No bats. No tire irons. There was a camera tripod stuffed into one of the seats. No weapons. And they took that car down and they put dowel rods in each of the 9 holes in the car, so you could see exactly the angle that they came in at. And you'll see the 3 through Jordan Davis's door, and the 3 into Tevin Thompson's door, and the 3 in the back, and the long dowel rod that goes from the back of the car to the front, right through Tommy Stone's sun visor. And ladies and gentlemen, you won't just have what happened in the Durango. You're going to have what happened in his car. Because when his girlfriend, Rhonda Rauer, heard the gunshots, like everyone else, she was shocked. And she stepped outside. And the defendant yelled to her, "Get in the car." And she just stood there. And he yelled at her again, "Get in the car." And she did. And they pulled off. North on Southside Boulevard. Maybe 3 miles to the Sheraton Hotel. They had cell phones. But the defendant didn't call 911. Didn't drive to a police substation. He drove to the parking lot. He put his gun back in the glove box. And he walked inside. He didn't tell anybody at the front desk. He just went upstairs. And he called the pizza delivery service to get a pizza. And he got his little dog. And he went down and took him for a walk. And they turned on the movie. And he poured a big, tall drink. Rum and Coke. And then he went to sleep. But in the morning, Rhonda Rauer turned on the news. And it was a story of a shooting from the night before at a gas station on the south side. And a 17-year-old boy had been killed. And she told the defendant about the news story. And then they packed their bags and went home to Brevard County, 2.5 hours away. And you'll learn that they had been at a wedding before stopping at the store, the defendant's son's wedding. and they skipped their plans for Saturday night in St. Augustine and drove back to Brevard County and unpacked their bags and went inside. But through the night, while the defendant was sleeping, the detectives were working. Remember the guy who wrote down the tag number, Sean Atkins? They ran the tag. It came back to the defendant. And in the middle of the night, they put together photo spreads with the defendant's picture, and they showed them to the three boys. Tevin Thompson, who was right next to the defendant, recognized, identified the defendant. That's the guy who shot at us. And he signed his name. And they got an arrest warrant. And they went to Brevard County the next morning and arrested the defendant, who had not a mark, a scratch on him. And they seized his car. And in the glove box was a Taurus 9mm pistol with 10 rounds missing. And a magazine underneath it, another full magazine. And they searched that car. There was a shell casing on the front floorboard, right by the defendant's right foot. There were 4 shell casings in that little trough between the windshield and the hood that the expelled casings had been caught in. That matched the 5 casings at the scene. And you'll hear from a ballistics expert, Maria Pagan, at the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. And she will tell you exactly how the defendant's gun operates. What the trigger pull is, fancy term, is just the amount of force it takes to pull a trigger. And she'll tell you that to expel a single bullet, you have to pull the trigger 1 time. To fire 10 times, the person has to pull it 10 times. And she'll show you how the gun works. But ladies and gentlemen, you're also going to learn in this trial, as Ms. Corey discussed with you yesterday, real trials are not like TV. And the witnesses are not well-spoken actors and actresses. For example, Sean Atkins, the guy who was standing there, who had the insight to write down the tag number. He's in prison now. Since November of 2012, he's been arrested, prosecuted, sentenced to prison. Tommy Storms, the 19-year-old driver of the car, was on probation at the time, felony probation, and he had a curfew. He was supposed to be home at 7 p.m. He was violating his curfew when the gunshots went off at 7:38. And when you listen to the witness's testimony, you'll hear inconsistencies, real life inconsistencies, the way it happens in everyday life. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, you'll hear from Dr. Stacy Simons, the medical examiner who performed the autopsy on Jordan Davis's body. Critical testimony. And she will take you through and show you the path of each bullet. How 2 bullets entered the backs of his legs around his groin. One of which lodged in his left hip. And you'll see an x-ray of the projectile, and you'll see the projectile itself. And the 3rd bullet that went in to his right side, about midway up, and passed through his liver and his lungs and his aorta. And you'll see that the path of the bullet is like this because Jordan Davis was like this when he was shot and killed, leaning away from the defendant. And you'll see an x-ray of that bullet lodged in his chest. And ladies and gentlemen, at the end of this trial, Judge Healy will read to you the law that applies to all of us the laws that apply to each of us. And we are confident that after you hear the evidence in all of it, that you will know beyond any doubt in your head, in your heart, in your gut, that when that defendant pointed that pistol at the car full of unarmed teenagers and started and continued to pull the trigger, he was guilty of shooting into an occupied vehicle, guilty of 3 counts of attempted murder, and guilty of the first-degree murder of Jordan Davis. Thank you for your time.